Welcome back, and thanks for tuning into the Wartburg Athletics podcast. My name is Trent Jackson. I'm joined by 05 Wartburg graduate, 2018 John Kurtt Alumni Coach of the Year. She's led Wartburg women's soccer to 6 NCAA Tournament appearances, along with a pair of conference regular season and tournament championships. In her 10th season at the helm, she's compiled an overall record of 110, 49, and 26. Head coach Tiffany Pins, thanks for your time today. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah. So snow day for the kids, huh?
Snow day. It is interesting outside.
I'm sure they keep you on the toes.
It's not actually a snow day, by the way. They are remote. So we did some schoolwork this morning.
I was going to ask that snow days aren't really snow days anymore.
They aren't, not this year at least.
Yeah,
so we're spreading out the homework, though, a little this morning and then a little later on.
These poor kids can never experience it. I think the real snow days are the old, or out of the books.
Yeah, where you just lay around, watch TV, don't play outside probably.
Yeah,
but
go sledding.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Play pond hockey for us Minnesotans. Well, I didn't have the pleasure of working with you this past fall, so with the soccer schedules being moved to this spring, so catch me up. What's new?
Well, the year has definitely been different for all of us in a lot of different ways. This fall, our team did have the opportunity to practice, and we had Saturday scrimmages versus each other, which ended up being about as good as it could be. So the team's doing really well. They're excited for the opportunity at this point to play this spring, and they've been really good at adjusting to the situation that we are in. So it's not ideal. I'm not trying to dress it up by any way, shape, or form, but they've made the best of it.
Right. Awesome. Well, one of the reasons I invited Coach Pins to the BurgCast today was to just chat about women's sports. And it's the week of celebrating National Girls and Women in Sports. You had a cool post yesterday, a cool quote, "Little girls with big dreams become women with vision." So what did that day mean to you?
Yeah, it's a special day every year, and I'll be honest, it was a busy day for me yesterday with some other things going on, and when I finally got to sit down and just reflect about the women that have been a part of my life, not only when I was playing, but I have coaching colleagues that are really important to me, and then all the women I've gotten to coach. I've been in the collegiate game for, 16 years now, and so I've gotten to be a part of just some really incredible women through this process we call college. And so it's nice to just take a moment to realize how big of a role sports have played in my life. It's not just a job. Right. It's so much more than that. Mm-hmm.
Did you have any type of message to the team or any discussion there?
We haven't. We didn't. I didn't get to see them yesterday. We actually get to meet tonight. We're having a team meeting. So definitely we'll be touching on that and, just making sure we don't take for granted how lucky we are to have these opportunities to play and be a part of each other's lives in this venue.
How cool is it for you to be or try to be a role model for some of them?
It is. I had some outstanding coaches growing up through all different sports, and I had wonderful women as role models, but actually they didn't really coincide. So the majority of the coach, well, all of them except for one, I had a sophomore volleyball coach. She was phenomenal, but that was it. I had all male coaches my whole life. So, when I got into this profession, I was originally wanted to teach, but I did want to show young women that you can be a part of sports and, have a partner in life and you have children and be successful. It's hard, but you can do it. So I take great pride in that.
Awesome. Tell me about your sport background growing up in Dubuque. What sports did you play, and then how'd you end up picking soccer?
Yeah, so I have a younger sister. My dad and mom were very involved in athletics. My mom really didn't get the opportunity to play, though. I mean, that's still that generation. She got to do some things outside, but there wasn't a lot offered within her school. So when they had 2 little girls, my dad just threw us into everything. Yeah. So I played my whole life. I played basketball as much as I played soccer. I also was involved in volleyball, did a little softball. I was terrible at softball. I'm not afraid to say that. But I started with soccer not till 3rd grade. And it was just because my neighbor friend played it.
Yeah.
Then my dad was forced to coach us because it was typical story. There wasn't a coach, ESPN kind of thing. And he got books from the library, and I think he really thought he wasn't going to like it, and he bought into it pretty quickly. But I had a love, like I said, for basketball and soccer, and I was definitely more talented in soccer than I was basketball, and that's where my love I just grew over time.
Cool. Well, you already touched on some of my questions here, mentioning, what it was like for your mom growing up in women's sports, but for you, what was the state of girls' sports then, and how much do you think it's grown to now?
Yeah, I like to I teach about this, and I like to tell my students, overall, I remember growing up really being supported, and it was, lack of a better word, the cool thing to do, and the people around me were doing it. Even growing up in the 90s, I didn't quite feel that, but reflecting back on it, we didn't have a lot of things on TV. I was still watching male sports all the time. And at the time, you don't realize how big of a deal it is to not be able to visually see those things. I mean, the U.S. women won the World Cup in '99. And that's like the first real moment I remember buying in and watching female sports. It was always the Cubs, the Bulls, the Packers. That's what I grew up watching. That's what my dad watched as well. To have a mom that didn't get to participate but was so excited about us participating was also amazing. I do like to tell my girls, though, I grew up in Iowa, and we didn't even have a state tournament my freshman year in high school in soccer. That wasn't even a thing yet. Yeah. It wasn't until my sophomore year. So to see it grow, when I was in high school, we had one class of soccer state tournament, and now there's 3. And just to see how many people are participating, it's amazing how far we've come in really a short amount of time. I graduated high school in 2000. So in just over 20 years, how much, it has expanded. But I was also around a lot of, girls at the time, women now, that love to play, and they did a little bit of everything too. So to be in that kind of supportive environment was awesome.
That's cool. Yeah, and then you end up at Wartburg, obviously, and had a great career as a knight. And like you kind of mentioned, the growth, and you were really a part of the growth of the women's soccer program here. That was on the incline. So, when you look back at some of the things, what are you most proud of during your tenure as a Wartburg women's soccer player?
Well, I think it first needs to be noted, Jim Conlon was the head coach at the time, and he worked tremendously hard before I got here to bring in some other key players. So when I transferred, because I transferred here to Wartburg, there was a group of young women already super committed to helping change the program. And the year before I got here, they had a tremendous season. And so they were really bought into this long-term vision of what the program could be. What I'm really proud of during that time, though, was the kind of tone we set, and really that personality has never left, of just hardworking individuals who care a lot about each other and that have a lot of fun. I mean, I like to joke with my girls. I know they probably don't think I'm as fun as, maybe they are right now, but back in the day, we just had this really great ability to take the sport serious. We wanted to win soccer games, but at the same time, we knew we were thriving when we were caring about each other and having a good time. So the fact that my senior year, we had a really great season, and we were ranked regional, and now we take that for granted. At the time, it was such a big deal. It was a really good step forward for the program, and I'm proud of what we achieved with the individuals that we had.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So you graduate in 2005, like I mentioned. So what was the next step for you? Did you always, know you wanted to stay involved in the game?
Yeah, so I was going to be a history teacher. Well, that's what I wanted to do. I loved history. I knew I wanted to be in the education system in some way, shape, or form. But my head coach, Jim Conlon, came to me the summer of my senior year and said, hey, you could make this, a career. You could coach. And what he had mapped out for me was go get your master's, come work for us as an assistant. And it just felt like an opportunity that I, really wanted to pursue. And I'll be honest, it wasn't a really attractive thing even to my parents who love what I do, the pay was low, and I still think there was some real question marks, like, can you make this a career? Like, is this really what you're going to do the rest of your life? So right after graduation, I didn't leave Waverly, and I went immediately to UNI for my master's and was working here as an assistant coach.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned before, I think like 10th grade volleyball was your only women's coach, and then obviously you touched on Coach Conlon, sorry.
Yep.
And then, but what was that experience with some of your coaches, and did you have any instrumental ones that really inspired you to think, like you said, after that experience with Con, like, hey, I can be a female head coach and I can make a difference?
Yeah, Coach Conlon definitely introduced me to this world, got me excited about it, and believed in me that I could do it. And then the next step that I took was after 2 years here, I went out to Denison, Ohio, and I actually worked under a female head coach, Gail Murphy, out there. So I worked for her for 4 years, and she exposed me to so many other women that were coaching at the high level.
Good. Yeah.
That it was the first time for me that I realized, okay, you can have a certain personality and you can do these things as a female and be really, really successful. So I am very grateful for my time out at Denison because it shaped me in a lot of different ways.
Right. And I know you appreciate being an alum here. That shaped you, like you said, and I know that you cherish the opportunity to give back to Wartburg. But what is the most rewarding thing for you working in college athletics as a female?
Just seeing other females excel in leadership roles and seeing them step out of their comfort zone and be successful. I do think at times females are still willing to take a step back and let others do things. But here at Wartburg, and this was when I was an athlete too, the support for our female athletes, this was happening in early 2000. Again, when I talk about, not feeling like I'm just a female athlete, I was around women here at Wartburg during that time that were all Americans and winning national titles. Missy was here and Butchery, and just phenomenal women that were just praised and celebrated. So that's the one thing I love about Wartburg, and that, not to get off on a tangent, that goes outside of athletics here.
Right.
I do think we do a really good job of celebrating women here and their successes, and then allowing them, or even giving them a little nudge to, get into these situations where they do need to lead and, be the ones that are taking charge.
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe on the other side of the coin a little bit, and this could be, kind of subjective depending on specific roles or positions, but for you, what are some challenges you think are out there as far as being a female head coach?
Yeah, I still think there's a lot of stigma that we deal with. I deal with. There's definitely, any head coach is going to talk about referees. Let's be
Right.
real. But if you sat on our sidelines consistently, and if you asked any of my assistants, former or current, I'm definitely at times treated differently than our male head coaches. Depending on my demeanor in the game. And that's still a really frustrating part, to have my team witness and view men being disrespectful to me in that kind of controlling situation, and then maybe seeing my male counterparts be able to act a certain way as well. The other challenge is just in my sport, there's not a lot of women coaches.
Yeah.
Our conference right now of 9 schools, there's only 2 of us. For my first, 5-6 years at Wartburg, I was the only female coach. So, I'm going into meetings with the men's soccer head men's coaches, the women's, and I'm the only female in the room. And to say that isn't challenging would be, a lie. And then just on a broader scale, when we go to our conventions and stuff, it's, it's just a male-dominated field. So just being able to connect and, be taken serious as well. I do think we have to prove ourselves a little bit more. And, just some side comments we'll get about, I'm a mom. I have 2 wonderful children and a husband. But, I still have to deal more so with people judging me for being passionate about my job, and I think I deal with that sometimes more than my male counterparts do.
Yeah, for sure. Well, do you have any of that similar relative dialogue here with some of our other female head coaches, whether that's with Coach Walker, Mueller, Mirbach, or maybe some of the other coaches in your profession?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it varies by sport, right? So my sport definitely, with our female coaches, has the least amount of female coaches, but that doesn't mean they don't still deal with this kind of things. And we have conversations of, maybe some venting, but also a little, how do we move forward? How do we make this better? What small changes can we start to make? And it's not easy. I know I've been here for 10 years, but man, it takes you like 4 or 5 just to get settled as a head coach. Yeah. And, so now I feel like, all right, I'm starting to get into a position where we need to continue to be proactive and help make change. So overall, again, we work in a department that is so supportive of what we do. It's kind of more of those outside factors that we have to deal with.
Yeah. Well, and even in my time, my short career in sports information, and I've been at previous schools and other women's soccer coaches that have been through the same thing that you, and are very open about it. You probably know maybe which one I'm talking about.
Yep.
But and like you said, but what are some ways that you can continue to grow girls in women's sports and maybe improve some of those challenges that you were talking about?
Well, number one, we have to continue to foster opportunities for young women, whether that's playing sports, right? Or, if they're looking to pursue any type of career in athletics. It doesn't just have to be coaching, SID, there's the marketing. I mean, there's so many things that young women can do, and really showing them that you can do this and why it's so great. I mean, I still think sometimes I'm so lucky with my job, but also we have to be louder voices. And that's an area I'm willing to say that I grew up during a time that it was instilled in us to be respectful young women, just work hard and you'll get ahead. And as I'm getting older and experiencing, I like watching these young coaches that are way younger than me. They're way more vocal, and that's a good thing. Yeah. I think I was taught that you're not supposed to speak until you're experienced enough or until you've accomplished enough. And that's something that over the last couple of years, I've realized we got to start talking about these things when things happen that are a little bit out of bounds, or even if the perception is it's not going correctly. We got to be able to talk about it and bring it to the attention of the right individuals.
Right. Well, we've had some previous podcasts where we talked plenty about just diversity in sport here at Wartburg in particular. So I'd encourage our listeners to check out those episodes. We had one with track and field head coach Marcus Newsom and another with a pair of men's soccer players. So we talked about some of those issues and broke down that topic as well as here. And you mentioned Misty Buttry. Check that one out as well.
Yes.
So I was thinking about this yesterday and want to get your thoughts. And we've already touched on this a little bit. I think obviously it's great to acknowledge all the great women that are in leadership roles and sort of breaking down those barriers in athletics. But at the same time, I think we want it to become the norm.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to set an environment up where women know that they're going to be taken serious when they are pursuing opportunities. And that's something I even teach about, that we have to get rid of the stigma of girls' sports isn't exciting or fun. I mean, like that's just so beyond, what actually is happening. But it's about teaching language and how we talk to each other. I mean, there's some really basic steps we have to start at. And it's small. But, as much as we can, we have to continue to just teach and show these young women what they can achieve. And that's what sports is so great. When you think about the day yesterday, when we celebrate women and girls playing sports, that is an avenue where they can just go out and compete and express themselves and be exactly who they are. And, that's the other thing, too. We just need more education for, us older people who did grow up in a different time, right? I mean, I know my players sometimes, we talk about how they're treated out on the field. with referees, it's different. You come to a men's game and you come to a women's game, and they're treated differently because we're taught girls are supposed to act differently. That's out of bounds. And I mean, some of those conversations, they need to continue to happen. And that way we don't have this conflict out on the field too.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, we already touched on some of your teaching and how much you love that opportunity here at Wartburg, but which is the norm for a lot of our staff here that wear multiple hats outside of just being a coach. So tell me about some of the other things that are involved with your role.
Yeah, I also am, are on some different committees here. I'm part of our Title IX team here at Wartburg. I'm also part of our Early Alert, which, really is an outstanding group of people. My role is so small that really, make sure the students are thriving here, and the ones that are maybe struggling, that we're getting them the help that they need. And, being a part of just teaching in general here. I teach 2 different classes in the second semester, and I actually teach a summer course. It's wonderful because I get to interact with a lot of different students. Most of them end up being athletes that I don't normally get to interact with.
Yeah.
So I love a lot of the different roles that I get to play here at Wartburg.
Well, we had some recent tough news this week. NCAA canceled Division III winter championships, but we can be optimistic that, we'll see what happens in the spring. But like I mentioned, your schedule got moved to the spring of 2021, set to get underway late March. So let's talk about 8-game conference schedule. What are you looking forward to, and the team looking forward to most?
Playing someone else besides ourselves.
Just playing.
It's hard because in 2019, we had a great year. We had a young team. Yeah. And so I would be lying if we didn't have some big dreams for 2020. Unlike the spring sports in 2020, we had time to process that probably wasn't going to happen. It wasn't quite so obviously abrupt. So I know the girls have been really committed to making sure that they not only got better, but that they would, be in a place to still achieve great things. They know it goes beyond winning games, though, and we've talked about this 2020-21 team, this school year team. It's probably going to be the most important team in Wartburg history, and it'll have nothing to do with wins or losses. These women are going to be the ones that really keep our culture at an all-time high, the expectations with nothing. My coaching colleague, Jamie, the softball coach, gave me a great quote, we're going to have to sacrifice more to get less.
Yeah. And
that's tough because these athletes, they work so hard. And they've been so committed to what we've had to ask them to do just to practice, So I'm just looking forward to watching their joy when they get to go and play another opponent, whether that means, some of my players who step on the field or the ones that are standing on the bench. There's just nothing better than watching them be excited for each other and achieve something together. So we're excited, and, we'll see what the season brings us. We are cautiously optimistic, though, too. Yeah. We know that at any point things could adjust again. But their attitudes, I've been really blessed because their attitudes have been phenomenal.
Great. Yeah, I'm sure everyone's outlook and, just playing in general, having that opportunity has changed a bit.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully I've given you enough time to give you a heads up on this one, but tell me about the best advice you've ever received.
Well, this is a hard question for me because I guess I kind of think of it in two folds, best coaching advice that I've actually gotten. And it's really simple, and it's, don't let your highs get too high or your lows get too low. And why do I think that's so important in coaching is because, it is very easy to get wrapped up in the negative, especially during a COVID time. Yeah. And at the same time, it's very easy to get wrapped up in one big win. And the best coaches that are role models to me really find that balance. They're able to overcome the adversity very quickly. They are able to figure out steps to make something better. And then they relish in the moment of success, but they quickly move on and realizing that there's another thing, up ahead. As an individual, really the best advice I've ever gotten is from my parents. I mean, if you work hard and you're kind to others and respect others, you're going to go far in life. And so that's something they really instilled in me early on. You work hard, you respect others, and you're going to be in a good place. My parents, I always joke, I have, a 7 and a 4-year-old. I don't know how they instilled what they did in me to be an individual who is accepting of others, that's willing to learn. And I need to call them up and be like, how do I teach this to our children? Because I don't remember them just sitting me down and being like, you got to be good to other people. Right. It was just something that they instilled in me. So I know that I cheated with the 2 answers, but that's definitely, my girls would probably tell you it's not to be late because they know I'm always on them. Like on time is late, or early is on time and on time is late. But that is not the best advice I've gotten.
Yeah, those are both really good ones. I like those. And that almost made me, that first one, never get too high, never get too low. Almost made me think of your 2019 season. You get off to such a fast start. What was it, like 7-0?
Oh, yeah, yep.
I don't remember exactly. But then you had some ups and downs. And then at the end, up until you lost second round NCAAs, which to number 5 ranked team in the nation. You obviously still played a great game, but man, you guys were just on such a roll at the end of the season, playing so confidently. Tell me about some of those up and downs relative to that advice that you mentioned. Yeah,
I have to be 100% honest. We had such a young team. We were going to play a new system. I didn't really know we were going to be quite that successful. I had a feeling, but I mean, you're right. We were like destroying teams. I wasn't expecting that. We play such a hard schedule too. We were playing the best teams in the Midwest, and it was kind of like, whoa, what is happening? And then we stumbled. I mean, that was nice. You said a little bit of a down. No, we fell hard. But that's what was so great about that team is they took that moment to kind of learn and grow, and they just never stopped working. So even when things weren't quite coming together, they just would show up to practice and do it again. And our focus the whole year in 19 was we just have to continue to get better as a group. And ultimately, our goal was the end of the fall. When you have a young team, though, that's going to happen. We had all sorts of new starters and things and individuals out there. So I knew it was going to happen probably at some point. But the fact that they then bounced right back was exciting. It was a really, really fun year. And Pomona Pitzers, who we lost to, they were tremendous. But to play at home in the NCAA Tournament again was just fantastic.
Yeah, it was so fun.
Yeah.
Lots of great games and crazy weekend on campus. But
I know, but how fun was it, right? So many teams. Like the buzz was just like, it was awesome.
And fans, listeners can also check out a previous episode with Emily Fontana, who will be one of your upperclassmen leaders this year, and she touched on some of that process as well. This is another tough one for you. Favorite Wartburg memory? Could be as a coach, as a player. Maybe you have to do top 3 instead, or any that just stick out.
Wow, my favorite Wartburg memory. Oh, there's so many of them. I will have to lump. One of my favorite memories is just going abroad with teams. We've taken a team to Spain, Italy, and Germany, and those trips they're just like kind of life-changing as a head coach because you just are experiencing something totally different with your team, and that will stay with me forever, for sure. All the different groups that I've gotten to take there. One of my favorite memories, though, is when I was a first head coach. My first win at Augustana, it was our opening game, and I was young. Our team, just was so bought in, and they played so well. And we scored a goal. We won 1-0, and we scored the goal, and the whole bench went nuts. And I was so strict back then. So I started yelling at them. I was like, get back on the bench. And like I have film on it now. It just cracks me up because now I'm like running down the field. I'm like grabbing players when we score goals. I was setting the tone though, like we function this way. And then, my other favorite memory, which is actually it's a weird favorite memory. We lost at home in 2011 in a PK shootout. and it was heartbreaking. But that moment that team had elevated us, right? They had not only won a first-round game, which had never happened before, or like in that sense, they outright beat a team. They didn't win on a PK shootout, but we were at home for the first time. And just that weekend, it just meant so much to – I just knew we took a big step forward that weekend. So
those are great.
Yeah.
Last one, any outgoing message, to girls or young women involved in sports from you?
Yeah. Continue to stay involved. Ask questions. One thing I've learned over the last couple of years is you need other women in your life too who you can talk with, because it can sometimes be a little bit lonely, but we're out here, and making sure that you're never afraid to put yourself in a situation, even if you don't think you're prepared, right? I mean, that's a lot of women's issues is, I don't have enough experience. You need to just put yourself out there. And I was lucky enough that I had a male kind of force me. My head coach was like, come be our assistant. But, at the end of the day, the next step was my responsibility, and I took it, and it was a big step. Moved to Ohio and was in a whole different environment, but you can't be afraid to make mistakes. You got to put yourself out there, but yeah, be willing to learn, ask questions, put yourself out there.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thanks again for your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I could talk all day.
All right. All right. Good luck in the spring, too.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the BurgCast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do us a favor with a retweet at Wartburg Knights on Twitter or a share on Facebook. Check out the official Wartburg Athletics website at go-knights.net for all the up-to-date news and information, where you'll also find the latest podcast posted.